Well, Razorback fans, there are a lot of Razorback basketball players that are really good under John Calipari's first season, but which one's going to break out? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pot at the Palace edition. John Nabors alongside Curtis Wilkerson. As it's always fun to talk basketball, Curtis. And what's really fun is when the team has a lot of interest, has a new coach, has a lot of energy, but also has a lot of great players. And Arkansas seems to have plenty of those on this year's team.
Yeah, I'll say so. That's the perk of chicken man money, I guess. Is you can go out and, for lack of a better term, buy really, really good, talented players. So you love to see it. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas, Coach Cal's made no bones about it. He wanted to go 9 deep, and he went out and got 9 really, really good players. And it's a good blend of balance on the roster with guys who are experienced playing for him, some really high level transfers, and then some freshmen that we can be really, really excited about too.
So looking at all of the players, you know, there's some that obviously maybe got ranked higher in the transfer portal or got ranked higher coming out of high school. We still don't really even know for sure what the rotation is going to look like who's coming in, who's going out, who's getting the most minutes. There's so much to kind of predict here. But when you have that many great players and players that are potentially going to be high-end guys, it makes you wonder, like, okay, so who's going to break out? Like, who's going to be that breakout star? It's a good problem to have, but it's really hard to choose because of how many players that are great players that are on this team.
Yeah, it really is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I look at it on the surface and I think, well, you know, John L. Davis, Nelly Davis is probably going to be Arkansas's best player, but he's already a breakout star, you know, and so who's going to step up to really complement him? Jonas Adu is another guy who I feel like he wouldn't really fit that breakout candidate because he broke out last year at Tennessee. He was an all-SEC guy. But one guy that I really, really have my eyes on, who I think is going to take a huge step forward, it's Big Z, man. Really, really high on Big Z. I don't think people realize just how talented this kid is. It probably depends on how much Kentucky basketball you watched last year. If you peep the stats, you probably just think, you know, not bad for a freshman big. He could probably be a solid piece behind Adu. And maybe that's true, but I think he's going to be a lot more than that for Arkansas. If you know his story and you watch this dude on the floor, I think you know that there's a super high ceiling there. He was a late arrival on campus. Remember, he wasn't cleared by the NCAA for the longest international player. And he was also sick for a stretch with stomach issues. He didn't even make his debut until mid-January. But then he immediately got into a rotation that included, you know, Ugonna Onyenso and Aaron Bradshaw and Trey Mitchell. We know how challenging it is to get your feet underneath you in the middle of the year. Ask Nick Smith about that. So for him to crack the rotation, I was pretty impressed by it. But John, I don't know, man, like 7'2", 240 pounds and skilled. This dude ain't Connor Vanover. He can actually shoot and make threes. He's a really good passer at his position. He's got instincts offensively. Defense, it's rotations he's got to work on, right? I mean, he's not going to switch on a point guard and keep him in front, but he can protect the rim. I just think there's some comfortability with him now and John Calipari, the guys on the coaching staff. He's got some of his teammates who have come over with him, a full offseason of strength and conditioning and development. Jonas Adu is your guy at center, but I'm telling you right now, they're going to be finding more and more minutes for Big Z as the season progresses. I think he's going to be a dynamite player for him.
Well, it's also about Big Z that, you know, like obviously all the things you mentioned too, but what interests me, but also kind of made me appreciate Big Z was when Cal got the job, there was no waiting. Like he was the first player, I believe, that like committed or transferred, however you want to put it. It was like no hesitation. I felt like it was the next day. It may not have been the exact next day, but it was that quick. And I think that that's like, you know, in this day and age of college basketball, coaches change, you know, teams change, all of that. And in a lot of cases, because of so many options, these players are like, okay, well, my coach is gone. He went somewhere else. Do I go there? Or do I see if I can get more NIL elsewhere at other schools? Hey, I really like this coach that's reached out to me. Or, hey, do I stay at the school and try to wait it out? There's so many options. But with Big Z, it didn't even seem like he cared about any other option. He's like, no, I want to play for Coach Cal. So there's got to be, you could look at it a bunch of different ways, but I just took that as whatever Coach Cal has done for Z and has told Z, has coached, whatever it is. That's the only person he wanted to be with. And so I think that's kind of a cool example of he didn't look at any options. He's like, nope, Cal's my guy, and I don't want to even entertain any other option.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I think it speaks volumes to the relationships that Cal's able to develop. There's one thing you can say about the man is when he develops a bond with somebody, it's a strong one, and it lasts. I mean, you can tell that by the way his former players who are in the pros talk about him. Guys who have gotten older, who have kids now, who are playing for him. You think about Wagner and some of these other guys. So he's really, really good with that. But yeah, Z, he's going to be a baller, man. I'm telling you right now. And I do think that when it's all said and done with Jonas Adu and Big Z at center, that's going to be the best 1-2 punch around the rim in the SEC. There's no doubt in my mind about it. I'm curious where you would go with that question. If you're looking at, maybe a breakout star for this team, I kind of have a hunch about where you're going, but I'm gonna let you speak for yourself.
Well, that's the thing, because again, defining it like you did of, Boogie Flint or not Boogie Flint, John L. Davis is not going to be a breakout player, because like I kind of look at two different options.
Okay.
So one of them I'll start with, because I guess technically he could be, is DJ Wagner.
Yeah.
Because
I thought about that.
Yeah, because it's like, we know last year's freshman year, he was like number one player in the country, coming into Kentucky, had all these expectations and everything. And it's just funny because he averaged just a shy under 10 points a game and everything. But people, aka Big Blue Nation, looked at him as just like, oh, he's not any good, bust, all this stuff. I was like, okay, maybe, but there's something like, you don't become the number one player coming out of high school for no reason. Like, it's not like everyone got it wrong. There's something to your game. Maybe you don't become this great NBA player, but there's something to you. So he'd probably be my number one, but a close one behind him, Trevin Brazil.
Ooh,
that's because, there's so many other answers you go with, but the reason I would think Trevin Brazil, and maybe it's more hope or whatever, is we've seen Trevin Brazil at his best, man. And when he's at his best, he's not only really good, but he's fun to watch with his athleticism and everything. Injuries plagued him. Maybe it was the type of system, whatever it was. But now that he's healthy, now they withdrew from the NBA, got out of the portal, came back to Arkansas. He's also one where I'm like, man, if he stays healthy and if Cal really gets him in position, he's got so much skill set that maybe he could be that guy.
Man, it's crazy. I was considering DJ Wagner too. I don't know why I didn't even think about Brazil. That's a great call on your part. I thought, full disclosure, that you were going to go with the dude with the arrow.
Yeah.
and he's a good candidate for it too, honestly, because I think there's a reason a dude who averaged 7 and 5 last season is getting mocked in the first round for next year's NBA draft. And that's because people see a lot of potential there that he's on the verge of tapping. And so the arrow, he's going to have his opportunities. He's a super athlete. He's a matchup problem, a versatile defender. How much of a step forward does he take in the 3-point shooting department? He's made 10 over the course of his career. He's put a ton of work into it. Cal said he's worked on the things that he's needed to work on and has improved. If he can become a threat that has to be respected from 3, he could be a dude that really makes a leap forward too. But yeah, I mean, plenty of options there. You can't really go wrong. Yeah,
that's what makes this year so fun and what makes this team so much fun to predict and talk about. And we will continue to talk about it, especially some of the young guys coming up next year on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So stay with us. All right, folks, we're going to continue on here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. But first, we got to tell you about our friends over at Gametime. We're all looking to go to events, sporting events, concerts, all that good stuff. We got to have tickets. Well, a lot of different places that you can go get tickets. You can go up to the front door sometimes. You can go and have buddies transfer you tickets or whatever. There's all these third-party websites. There's all this stuff. But the thing is everything's different, and you want to make sure you're getting the best deal. Want to make sure you're getting the best ticket for the best price, and you want to make sure that it's legitimate. Well, that's what Gametime is able to do for you. They are the best in the business when it comes to your ticket buying because they have last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off with those last-minute deals when going to any of these events, and that's sports, concerts, theater, comedy shows, no matter what it is. They have flash deals. They have zone deals. They have all-in pricing to show you all the prices up front. You get to see your seat from the viewpoint of what the seat will look like. And they have the lowest price guarantee coverage, where if you find the tickets somewhere else that were cheaper, they will credit you with 110% of the difference. It's that simple. So take the guesswork out of buying all tickets this year with the Gametime app. By downloading the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so continuing on with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, and this next one, we talked about some breakout players, but I don't know, Curtis, I felt like for Cal forever was always about the freshmen, always about the young guys coming in. And not to say that we haven't talked about them, that you haven't talked about, because I know we have, but they're almost secondary, even though all of them were 5-star players coming out of high school.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about all the one and done freshmen that have come through with John Calipari, all the lottery picks, all the guys in the pros. A lot of them just took off as freshmen. So I love the topic there. Shout out to Dickie V, who's going to be the diaper dandy for this team. And Arkansas's got, I think 3 really, really good options. But I don't know how much you've been paying attention to my Twitter lately, but I kicked a hornet's nest with BBN with some stuff on Carter Knox. I'm going with Carter. I have to now. I love the size that he has for a freshman. I mean, he's 6'6", 225, man. I mean, that's the type of frame that can absorb some contact and play against the physicality of the SEC. He's trimmed his body fat down a lot and leaned up since he got to campus. He's made an emphasis on not selling for threes. He's using that body to get to the rack more. I don't know, man. I mean, we're talking about a kid here who averaged 27 points per game at Overtime Elite. And he's also the multi-year winner of their King of the Court competition. And what that means is if you put him in a one-on-one situation against somebody, he's beating him. He's getting a bucket. And you're going to need that. You're looking for someone to clear out for and let him go to work. Who's the best defender on the opposition going to be guarding? Probably Nelly Davis, right? And so then you're going to have a secondary defender guarding a guy like Carter Knox, who's such a good one-on-one player. I like the odds there. Here's the other thing. Big bro, Kevin Knox. Let's see. SEC Freshman of the Year, first team All-SEC, honorable mention All-American, and a lottery pick in one season under John Calipari. So I don't know why Carter couldn't do some of the same things.
Yeah, like he's the one that where, again, not the freshmen maybe don't get brought up as much as the transfers or anything like that. But I would even say, and maybe you disagree, but I feel like Carter Knox is the one that maybe of all the freshmen that doesn't get talked about as much. And again, I know, I believe he was the first freshman to commit to Cal too.
Yep.
For switching his commitment from Kentucky to Arkansas. And so, yeah, there's some intrigue there with him. And, the other guy, of course, like Boogie Fland, man, like from everything that I've read about him and the excitement of him too, I don't know, like you could sit there and look at all the predictions and all the rankings and all that, but I don't know, dude, like when I see a dude from New York, I don't know. Yeah. It's just like, I feel like there's some extra sauce to him, some extra like chip on the shoulder, kind of, especially from the Bronx. Like, I don't know, man, like that guy is, I don't know. All of them have potential. All of them are really good, but he's also one of those players where I'm like, man, he has a lot going for him right now.
That's a really good point with that New York swagger that he's got about him. Like Carter Knox has the physical makeup to where you think, okay, he's going to be ready day one to play in the SEC. Boogie Fland's got to get stronger, got to get a little bit bigger. I think he's about 6'2", 175 or so. But when it comes to the mindset and the toughness, like there's no question that Boogie Fland has all that. You're right. I love the way he plays. He's such a smooth operator. I went back earlier in the week and was looking at his highlights and kind of rewatched the McDonald's All-American game. He was one of the best playmakers out there on the floor, man. Just really, really smooth with the ball. He's wired to score, and he can create with the best of them. And I think he's going to be a really big part of what Arkansas does in terms of knocking down 3-pointers this year. But he's kind of evolved his game as a high school player of the last couple years from being a combo guard who's really scoring minded to being a really good table setter as a point guard. He really is. I think he's a guy who can distribute. sees the floor really well. He's kind of developing that ability not to just hit the open man, but to kind of pass guys open. And you can tell that he's playing with better pace, has a pretty high floor IQ, I think, for a freshman. So there's going to be an adjustment period for him. There is for any freshman, but especially a point guard. But once he gets his feet underneath him, yeah, he could be a big time contributor who could play the 1 or the 2 for Arkansas, quite frankly.
Well, and also, like, you know, you look at a player's overall ranking coming out of high school, and if you're a top 10, top 15 player, I mean, you know how great you are, but there's different outlets that have him ranked all differently. But the thing that also stood out to me when I was looking at all of his rankings, whether it's Rivals or 24/7 or ESPN or whatever, is that every single outlet, whether it was at point guard or the combo guard position, every outlet either had him at number 1 or number 2 in the country. Like, they had some people had him at 10 or 15, 19, 21 nationally, but all of them agreed as far as the position, he was the number 1 player, or at least a top 2 player coming out of high school. So that's where I feel like Arkansas, it's gone so long since they've had like a true point guard, you know, like one that distributes, one that sees the floor. They've had some good ones, but considering the upside and how good this guy could be, he could be really fun to watch if he gets going and distributing and helping out the team and being that court general that they need.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you think about the Calipari prototypes of these young guys. Well, to get one in the same bloodline with Carter Knox, that's probably a pretty good start for that. And then, yeah, Boogie Flan, he has a lot of the attributes of those guys who you've seen pop as freshmen under Cal at Kentucky. And then, of course, we didn't even talk about Billy Richmond. He's the guy who's been in every highlight that the U of A put out throughout the course of the summer. Big time high flyer. I think he's a ready-made defender for the SEC. It's going to come down to how well he shoots the 3, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop either. You talk about guys who maybe haven't been talked about enough. Billy Richmond was it feels weird because he was a 5-star, but the lowest rated of the 3 freshmen. He was the one that wasn't a McDonald's All-American. But man, he might be better than I think I've given him credit for. So, you know, we talked about depth in a previous episode. Arkansas is going to need all 3 of those freshmen to be able to step in and contribute, but they really need at least one of them to kind of emerge as one of those young stars. And I think they got some good options there. Knox, Boogie Flan, sure, sign me up for either one of them.
Yeah, because even with Richmond too, you know, he's from Memphis, so that's like Arkansas used to have so many great players coming from Memphis, and they'd have a couple here and there, but that's also something I like seeing is a high-level player out of the city of Memphis being at Arkansas. There's something fitting there. I know we're about to wrap up too, but I'm curious, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but when I was reading Billy Richmond's bio, you know, his father, Billy Jr., played at Vanderbilt before transferring to Memphis and playing for Cal when he was at Memphis. Is this the first time that Cal has coached a father and a son in college? Or like, has that happened before? I'm curious on that.
Oh, it's crazy. He's got a lot of those situations. You know, DJ Wagner.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's a lot of you know, brother kind of deals. He's got a lot of that going on. The other thing about Billy Richmond is, yeah, Memphis guy, but he's played at Camden in New Jersey. He was teammates with DJ Wagner in high school. But we talk about some of that you know, northeastern New York, New Jersey kind of swagger. Caleb Battle was a New Jersey guy. We know he had a little bit of swag to him. Billy Richmond brings some of that same grit and toughness. He's got some stuff to him too. So pretty interesting to see what they're going to get out of him as well.
Well, that does it for us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. Appreciate each and everyone listening in, watching in. For Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Nabors. Same sports show, same sports channel next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you then.